Yeah,
Great, thanks. How about you?
good, thank you.
Okay, we're on. 30 seconds. 2 actions.
January mid-month meeting of the Nags Board of Commissioners, please come to order. Do I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. There being none, so ordered. This time we'll have our audience response. Any of those who would like to come speak tonight with any item that's not a public hearing on the agenda, can do so at this time. I'd ask that you hold your comments to 5 minutes if you could, please.
Good evening. My name is Richard Murphy, if you didn't know, and I live at 8817 South Old Oregon Inlet Road. Mayor Edwards and commissioners, I know you guys have probably missed me because I haven't been around lately, but my wife has been going through a series of surgeries, and maybe some of you haven't missed me, you know, but in any case, the only reason that I'm here and the reason that I've spoken in the past is to set the record straight and clear any allegations that have been made against me to make sure that the facts are out. And I'm going to summarize a few things tonight, you know, and try to be pointed and get out of here. So it won't take much of your time. The chain of events that has taken place, you know, since the mayor first called me and asked for my resignation back in April, has produced a gamut of emotions from me. And some of those are bewildered, confused, shocked, hurt, disgusted, and even embarrassed. I was embarrassed for the city. I was embarrassed for the fact that allegations were made and distortions were made, you know, to those allegations without any detailed investigation. And the final one was I'm just absolutely total pissed off, to be honest with you. I don't understand that. I didn't understand it until I did a thorough investigation. And I'm at a point in my life that I have had a successful engineering consulting firm. I've sold it for a lot more money than this old country boy ever thought he'd ever see. And I'm at a point that I want to take things easy. I volunteered to serve on the planning board, you know, for the city of Nags Head because I love Nags Head, always have, always will. Irregardless of this fiasco that's gone on in the last year, I don't think there was anything to it. It was a bunch of smoke screens and stuff like that, and there was a different agenda, you know, behind it. But in any case, I'll say this, I don't like politics, never have liked politics, and probably never will. And the main reason is people have convictions when they run for office, and a lot of times, once they're elected, those convictions go out the window and they change. 75% of the people, their whole demeanors change and everything when they get a title or whatever, you know, but that's not what we're here for. We're all here to protect the integrity of Nags Head, why we all live here and why we love it, and to make sure that we can keep on loving it by controlling development and making sure things are done the way they should be done and the way the majority wants it to be done. One of the attributes of an engineer, and whether it's a good attribute or a bad attribute, it's that things have to logically make sense. When I first got a call from Mayor Edwards, I was over in Raleigh at a doctor's appointment, and he just asked for my resignation. Gave me a couple of lame reasons, didn't ask why, didn't want to investigate anything, really didn't want to discuss it. I met with him and Cliff a couple of weeks, maybe a week later, and we discussed things. I even had an equipment operator meet him before the meeting and tell him exactly what was said, what I said to him, and not what was supposedly heard that was said, and what he did or did not do, you know, and everything that complied with permitting and stuff, and all that was taking place without any problem whatsoever. Even after Elizabeth Teague sent an email that basically killed any allegations that the mayor made against me, and then after meeting with Eric Morrison, the equipment operator, that set the record straight that I did not in fact say I didn't need permits because I was on the planning board. I would certainly hope that my reputation here is much better than that. Even if I thought that, I would never ever say it. But a public official, whether he's appointed or whether he's elected, does not give him the entitlement to anything. If anything, it puts us under a microscope, and we've got to make sure that we keep our backyard clean. And that's the purpose in it, you know. So to even be accused of making that kind of statement, I was just bewildered, dumbfounded, and have worked really hard to make sure that that was clarified. But once it was clarified, the mayor still distorted what Eric Morrison said to him just prior to our meeting with Cliff. In the meeting, it was on a Saturday, and I asked the mayor to meet with him rather than to talk over the phone about it. And unbeknowing, Cliff, the mayor had asked Cliff to be at the meeting, which was okay with me. I didn't care. I didn't care if the entire board was there. That's what I wanted anyway. I would love to have, you know, been able to talk to the board about it, and had any of my witnesses talk about it. But the mayor's demands in requiring my resignation and making allegations and distortion of the facts in that meeting set me back. And I asked him, I said, you know, now that I've proven that there's not anything to what you're trying to do, you've got to have another agenda. There's got to be a different agenda against Richard Murphy. It's not these lame things that, you know, have come up that have been worked through. You know, some of the things so far as permitting and work that I've done on my house, it was all either a misunderstanding about whether or not deck boards can be replaced, you know, under permit or not, something that I've polled 7 builders in the city, and none of them say they get a permit to replace the deck boards and treads on steps unless they are changing the support mechanisms. And by all means, if I had to have a permit, I would apply for a permit. Nobody's trying to ever get around anything. And to give you an example, my house, when I built my house in '79 down in South Nags Head, the city allowed 6x6 pilings on 12-foot centers. When I built it, I put 8x8 pilings on 8-foot centers. I built a foundation that could substantially hold against any kind of hurricane. In 2003, when Isabel hit, I had 16 pilings from the Outer Banks fishing pier that had washed through, and I had a dune that was 46 foot wide and 28 foot high that was completely flattened out and shoved in the front yard. I got a driveway that's about 400 feet long, and I had 4 foot of sand all the way out to the road. And those pilings, I even had 2 of them driven through the side of the garage underneath the house. All that wood beaten against my house. I've got a soft drink bottle collection up on a little shelf that's 4 inches wide, 20 foot up in my game room. Not a single one of those bottles fell off. To me, as an engineer, that told me that that foundation is extremely substantial. That house didn't even move enough for a bottle to fall off. You know, so I take it personally when somebody attacks what I've done and what I'm trying to do to a house and improve it and everything. I didn't like that. And of course, Cliff and Elizabeth Teague, if there was any issues, we discussed them. We found out they accused me of, or didn't accuse, I'm sorry. They said my house was straddling 2 lots. I knew it wasn't because I've had one tax record since 1979. They didn't, it was 2 lots at one time, but when I bought the 2 lots, I merged them so that the subdivision requirements and restrictions and covenants also included that additional lot to the south that I bought, the 50-foot lot. So it was done back in '79. I had forgotten that, but I went back through the records and I found where I had actually annexed that lot into a 4-lot subdivision that I did years ago. So a lot of those issues, even with CAMA, once I got CAMA involved, CAMA said it's a non-issue. You know, even with cantilever and a little 3x6 extension and putting a wall up for a grill, that was a non-issue. You know, so there was a lot of things that just needed to be discussed. There wasn't anything anybody trying to get around the law, and certainly it wasn't anything that was warranted the mayor making a request for me to resign. That was absolutely ludicrous, ridiculous. It still is ridiculous. One thing that I was very impressed with, and I would have expected it from a highly distinguished military officer, Commissioner Ratzenberger, sent a very short email saying, has there been any NOVs or notice of violations issued? And Elizabeth Teague sent him back saying, no, there hasn't been any, and implied that there wouldn't be. And of course, there hasn't been, and they wouldn't, and there is not going to be, because there was none. That, in addition to Elizabeth Teague's extensive email, should have been enough to have squelched the mayor's desire to try to force me off the board. It didn't. He was relentless about it. Well, I can tell you, as much as I have wondered and tried to figure out exactly what the motivation is, because there's got to be a reason behind everything, at this point in time, I can just tell you that it's crystal clear to me. And as Tom Cruise said in the movie, A Few Good Men, it's crystal clear. It's not just clear, it's crystal clear. Mr. Mayor, you had a different agenda, and that agenda did not include Richard Murphy being on the planning board. I've since talked to Elizabeth Teague. She's been straight up and honest since I started dealing with her 3 years ago. And she said that you expressed and did not want me to be chairman of the planning board. And that was back in January. That was before anything took place in April about moving sand, cleaning sand off of walkways and stuff like that. So that made it clear to me, you did have an agenda against Richard Murphy. That's a shame. I think you've overstepped the bounds in a lot of cases, and I've indicated to you, you know, that...
Mr. Murphy, would you wrap your comments up, please? You've been 10 minutes already.
Okay, I will. I'm very close now. And we've got, you know, we've got things that have been said that are not necessarily true. We've got Commissioner Demers, you know, has refused to accept the fact that he told you that I bullied my good friend and neighbor, Gene Acre, of 35 years. And one of the two of you said it in that meeting, and the integrity of that meeting is documented. You didn't know it, but when I met with you and Cliff, I recorded that entire meeting. So there's not any deviation, you know, of what took place. You can't twist that or distort it. And my attorney, we've prepared lawsuits against you and Marvin, you know, for defamation of character. And he's assured me that we've got a very, very good chance of winning. When I look at what that would do to the town and the possibility that Nags Head would have to pay your legal fees because you're setting commissioners and mayor, I've decided that I'm not doing that. I'm taking the high road. I have decided that I'm going to forgive you because of my Christian upbringing. But I'm telling you that I've got a lot of Irish blood in me, and that Irish blood will not allow me to forget it. I'm telling you, you don't want me as your adversary. You want me to be on your side. I'm just astounded by it. I'm embarrassed by it. And to the point that Mr. Mayor, when you, in that meeting, you indicated that you had enough votes from the commissioners to have me voted off if I wouldn't. You told me if I did not resign, that you had enough votes for Board of Commissioners. That was absolutely not true, because you did not have a special meeting. And if you did, it was outside of the realm of documentation. And I would suggest to you that instead of you getting yourself in a bind, you might spend some time talking to the School of Government in Chapel Hill, as I have done quite a bit over the last few months, because that could be construed as coercion of a public servant, and you don't want to go there, as I've indicated to you. And I don't want you to go there. That's counterproductive to Nags Head. Well, during the holidays, I talked to Eric Morrison, the equipment operator, and I asked him if he had heard from anybody in the city. So if anybody has told you, commissioners, that they talked to Eric Morrison, that's being deceitful. There's nobody has ever talked to him outside of the meeting that I set up between the mayor and him back in April on that Saturday morning. And I thought something that was very interesting. He told me that because Gene Acree was rude to him and short, he just said he was afraid to give her an invoice, so he was going to mail it to her. He wasn't going to hand deliver it. She called him and wanted him to bring it. He brought it to her. She paid him. She said, "I think you did a fantastic job. I'm satisfied." And she even gave him a bonus. And that's certainly contradictory to what the mayor has espoused and said, hey, you devastated the dune, you took everything down, you know. So there's a lot of conflicts there, and I don't know exactly where it is, but
Mr. Murphy, I asked you to
okay,
wrap up comments.
I will.
You've
I
gone
know
way
that
too
I know you
long.
have the leeway of 15 minutes, you know, according to our rules of procedure.
And you've been
you know.
15 minutes.
And I've got one more paragraph. I said, Mayor, Commissioners, Demers, you know, I want to know that I've forgiven you. Even though the mayor has failed to give me a public apology, I want to thank the Board of Commissioners for their retraction of the request for my resignation based on John Leidy's letter of August the 14th. And I was recruited to serve on the Nags Head Planning Board. After multiple times of being encouraged to do it over the years, I finally volunteered to do that, and I have been, and I'm proud of the fact that I've been involved in city government. I'm proud of the fact that I was elected in spite of what you wanted to do. I was elected chairman, and the board would have elected me chairman again yesterday had I not said, no, take my name off of consideration for the chairman. So I nominated Mark Cornwell for chairman and Barbara Gurnett for vice chairman, and we elected them. I feel that it's a real loss to Nags Head, and I know many of my supporters are going to be disappointed. But after careful consideration, I've decided that I cannot and will not serve under a mayor that is willing to put his personal agenda ahead of the goals of Nags Head. Distortion of facts, making false allegations, and communicating threats should never be tolerated by any elected official. Mayor Edwards, you, in consort with my good neighbor and what I thought, and supporter, and what I thought was a good friend, Marvin Demers, you know, have involved an elderly lady that is now dead. And that was a crying shame in something like this. I don't know what your task is, but I have I have taken this lack of respect for my willingness to serve and my expertise as a personal attack from you, Mayor, and from you, Mark. Therefore, even though it deeply saddens me, I respectfully request that my name be removed from the list of nominees for appointment to the Planning Board. This does not mean that my love for Nags Head ceases, nor does it mean that I will not be involved in politics of how Nags Head moves forward. I can only assure you, Mayor, that you will not want me, you will want me on your side. You don't want me to be an adversary. We all should have the same common goal here in Nags Head. I want to personally thank and publicly thank Cliff and his staff for their honesty during this. I want to thank the town employees, my fellow board members, planning board members, and especially the planning staff, for the town of Nags Head. It's been a distinct pleasure to work with you for the betterment of Nags Head. I will truly miss the interaction, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any other comments? Any audience response? Anybody else? If not, we'll declare audience response closed. Do I have a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
I would like to comment that I think those descriptions are good, the fire ones. Very impressed with the work that was done.
Very well done. All in favor of the consent agenda, accepting this consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. There being none. Next item is consideration of the Outer Banks event site MOU. This came forward from our January 7th meeting. It's on the website, and you have a copy of it that was given to you tonight.
Mr. Mayor, after the board's discussion earlier this month, I did go into the MOU and made the change that we had discussed during that meeting, which is to tie the term of the MOU itself to the time period during which the property remains designated as the Outer Banks event site. So that change has been made, and that was the only change I think that the board wanted to have made, so I did insert that. So, and that's reflected a little bit farther down. Let's see. Nope, there it is right there. At the very end of that paragraph, the first paragraph under property decisions, you'll see it says, unless extended by the term of the parties, this agreement shall be in effect so long as the property remains designated as the event site. That was our primary concern, had to do with there being no term on the agreement itself, and at least this way there is a definite duration for the document. So we recommend that y'all approve this MOU at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lighty. Mr. Hartman, you have any additional comments?
No, sir. I think this reflects what your concerns were, and I think it's ready to be approved.
Okay. Any discussion?
Can I ask just a simple question?
Yes, sir.
Suppose they change this to the Outer Banks Seafood Festival site. Does that nullify the whole thing, even if nothing else changes?
If you're going to change the name, I think you're going to need to revisit the agreement. As it
Okay,
is,
that's fine.
the thing will remain designated as this name until you change it.
Okay,
Event site's capitalized.
Yeah.
yeah, it's capitalized, so if you change it to a little event, then you have to redo the whole thing.
Not to say we have to make it any different, but you would need to have a new agreement at that point.
Any
Wait.
further discussion? Yes.
Not to say you can't use it for the seafood festival. I'm just saying that
Just
this.
saying, though.
But isn't the name of the site less relative than the use? As long as it remains an event site, it could be named anything as long as it's used as the event site. I mean, it wouldn't be the seafood festival event only.
As long as it remains the Outer Banks, as long as it remains used for the Outer Banks event site, then this MOU will be in effect.
To my knowledge, there is no intention of changing the name of that site to anything at this point in
Yeah,
time.
I'm sure.
I understand that, and I'm not trying to even imply that that might be or anything else. It just seems that this thing is tied to a specific 4-word name.
I think it's the use, not the name.
It's
Well-
really the use, yeah. Because if you designate it as a different type of site that has a different use,
Okay.
Then you need to have a different
I'm done.
agreement.
I'm done, that's fine,
that's a good question, though.
Any further discussion?
I'm good.
Do we have a motion?
I'll even make the motion to approve it.
Second.
Second, motion's been made and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of accepting the MOU with the Dare County Tourism Board as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. There being none, it's so ordered. Next item is consideration of the regional hazard mitigation plan. Andy, Holly's going to be up. Good.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Before you tonight is the revised goals and actions that you guys took a look at your last meeting, and we gave you some time to provide us with your comments, and those have been incorporated into the document before you tonight. Since we last met, we have had another regional planning meeting, and that was our final regional planning meeting. The majority of the document is available online now, the link in your packet. And only one person from the public attended the last final community meeting, and that person was from Currituck County. So there was not any other feedback or anything to be learned from our last meeting. So tonight we're asking that you approve or modify the goals and actions that are before you for incorporation into the regional hazard mitigation plan.
Any questions for Holly? There being none, thank you very much, Holly. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the regional hazard mitigation plan as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the plan with the modification and revised goals.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. And there being none, it's so ordered. Next is consideration of amendments to our red flag ordinance. Chief Zork, how are you tonight?
Good, very good, very good. Good evening, Mayor, Board. It's amazing that we're going to be talking about ocean swimming with all this cold wind blowing out there, but it's coming soon. Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8.2 pertains to ocean swimming prohibitions during dangerous surf conditions. Those would be our red flag days. In 2014, we had 9 red flag days. And Webb Fuller always said that if you have more than 10 red flag days, everybody gets a little bit restless. And
True.
so, some of that did kind of rise to the top. And, we had some interactions with the bodyboard community. And so, thus, we're bringing this to you for consideration. This ordinance has remained unchanged since 1990. And during hazardous surf conditions, the town manager is authorized to make the decision to close the ocean to swimming. And there is one exception to that, and that is if entry in the water is permitted if the user is equipped with a surfboard at least 5 foot in length with a leash and a fin. And, so that's used to have safe entry into the water for our experienced surfers. And that's proved to be a very good adjustment to the text amendment over the years. The text amendment you're considering today would permit entry into the ocean while swimming is prohibited, a red flag day, with a bodyboard and fins that meet specific design criteria. Its intention is to allow skilled bodyboard users to participate in recreational water activities and enjoy the same entry privileges as surfers, so we would hold them in parity. Bodyboarding, as I learned through my research, is a growing and popular sport. There's a small but engaged and vocal bodyboard community on the Outer Banks. And for some time, and as far back as I could look, since 2010, they've requested this exemption to be able to go into the water with a high-performance bodyboard. Historically, seasoned bodyboard users, much like surfers, have not been responsible for generating a large call volume at all. Our local inquiries, talking to Kill Devil Hills, Duck, Southern Shores, the Park Service, have shown that they have not they've not been responsible for overburdening their staff and resources. Staff feels this text amendment will help the town by reducing conflicts and relieving the burden of ocean rescue and police responding to and unnecessarily removing bodyboarders from the water. The community benefits include recognizing and permitting bodyboard users to enjoy their desired activities when conditions are optimum. They like to go in when the waves are big. Additionally, skilled bodyboard users often provide immediate assistance to swimmers in distress until professional lifeguard staff arrive and take over. And you might ask, how can this go wrong? But potential problems that can be created by this text amendment include the possibility of incapable users entering the water with insufficient equipment and their exposure to the hazards of the ocean. This might be, someone who enters with, some of the more conventional, maybe easily purchased bodyboard equipment, no fins, styrofoam board, that type of equipment. The intent of this text amendment is not to permit entry into the water for any of those folks that employ that equipment. To address this concern, our ocean rescue staff will undergo training, and they'll be able to identify these patrons and evaluate bodyboard and fins used to ensure they are constructed as defined in the proposed amendment. And look at that in a minute. Additionally, any bodyboard user, regardless of equipment, and we employ this with surfers, who acts in an unsafe manner or poses a danger to themselves or others, will be removed from the water immediately by ocean rescue staff. This amendment is supported by staff. I do have Ryan Rhodes, who's a member of the bodyboard community here. We met as far back as August 28th and came up with a definition of high-performance bodyboard and fins, and that's here for your consideration today.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Zort? Yes.
Only one. I appreciated your having a definition of high performance. I struggle a little bit thinking that we're going to have a lot of issues with explaining it to our visitors what high performance is when they see people in the water.
I agree, and that comes with the territory. It seems if you see one person with a bodyboard in the water, why can't I do that as well?
And a $10 boogie board is not a high performance bodyboard.
That's correct. That's correct.
Therein lies your problem.
Right. Well, and you've identified a good thing, and we're hoping that the educational approach will help to solve some of those problems. Of course, we have a new group of beach patrons every week. So we know we're taking on a lot. The good thing here is that this is only in effect, this will only apply during red flag days. I don't want to imply that those small bodyboards that are sold a less expensive version and a lower performance bodyboard are not valuable to the public. They are. I believe they save a lot of lives, but our lifeguards will have to undergo that training and be able to use some discretion as they employ that permission to go in or not to go in. So that's a good concern.
Other questions? Yes. Mr.
There's no
Ransford.
age discrimination here either?
No,
Okay.
I shied away from that altogether.
I just want to be sure that they're.
Other questions? I just had one, Chief Zort. Is there any way we can possibly tie some measurements to the bodyboards that we're talking about? I notice these bodyboards are usually much larger than the foam boards that we also see so often, the recreation boards. Is there anything that we can tie to that to make it easier for our lifeguards to determine what's acceptable, what's not acceptable?
In a more quantitative fashion, then?
More quantitative fashion, right.
Well, I believe that the bodyboards are kind of sized for the people the user. And am I correct in saying that?
You are.
Come on up, Ryan.
You may have a man who's 5'3", man 6'4". Most bodyboards are measured based on the height of your belly button. It's oddly enough, it's just an easy way to do it. there are people who are my height. I ride a board that's 42.5 inches. I do also have riders who are 10 years old who ride a board that's custom made for them at 36 inches, and it's based on their height and their weight. Smaller, low center of gravity riders seem to do pretty well with bodyboard, so it's very popular amongst smaller humans, I'd say. To me, I would avoid the height of the equipment because it's relative to their size as a person, not based on safety.
Is that a general rule of thumb on size and the body board? Would that be appropriate to use as an appropriate size body board? Really wouldn't have to do with anything to do with construction,
I
though.
would believe just the construction of the material, the board, the hard bottom board, being that it's not vacuum sealed, being that it is of a high performance quality, the height of the length of the board to me is not very relevant to the safety of the rider.
Okay.
It's personal preference mainly.
Okay, good, thank you. Any further questions?
I brought some equipment if you'd like to look at it to see the difference, but I think we verbally described it well.
Okay, I think it's pretty well done. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
one thing, there may be, for consideration, there may be a wording change in the red part where it says, I mean, we got the term is, then it says the core is made of. Shouldn't that be something like must be made of? That doesn't fit when you say the core is made of. It sounds like a description of a body board, but it doesn't sound like a requirement.
I thought about that grammatically when I read this, but I felt that it was okay because it starts off with the term is defined as, and then it goes on to describe how it's defined, and I felt that was consistent with it being part of the definition. So I feel that is satisfactory the way that's worded.
That's fine. I just read it, it didn't seem right to me. Good enough.
Any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the body board memo. Thing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion of the motion?
Red flag ordinance, excuse me.
If not, all in favor of accepting the amendments to the red flag ordinance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. There being none. Next item on the agenda is presentations from our town attorney, Mr. Leidy.
Thank you very much. At this point, the only thing I have for the board is to request a closed session to discuss the San Soda litigation as well as to confer with the board attorney and retain the attorney-client privilege. And we can do that at the appropriate time.
Let's refer that to the end, and we would also like to add to that the discussions of Colony Ridge.
That's included. That's under the attorney-client privilege.
Okay. Mr. Ogden, you have anything for us tonight?
No, sir, not tonight.
Mr. Demers, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Walters?
Yes, a couple of things to report out. Next Tuesday, the 27th at 5:30, here in this room, we'll be having a Dowdy Park workshop and public information session to review concepts on Dowdy Park and receive comments from the community. So there will be an overview of the concepts that we have, and there will be comment cards and an opportunity to talk one-on-one and fill out some information on suggested changes. And that will be a continuation of our process, and then after that, the committee will get back together again to review all of those, and then the board will have a presentation. So we hope everyone that's interested will attend. And then also, I'd like to give a brief report on the Dare County Tourism Board. I didn't do that at the last meeting. I had to leave the previous meeting early, so I didn't have all of the information. I believe our manager reported last time that we did receive the $120,000 for the multi-use path on the west side of 158, the continuation running from Windjammer to Carolista Drive. Kill Double Hills also received funds for a sidewalk from the fire station to West 3rd Street, and Kitty Hawk received funds for additional parking spaces at the Lillian Street beach access. And that was at our December 18th meeting. Our meeting on the 15th, we swore in new directors and officers. And hold on, I probably forgot my director's sheet, but the new chair is Tim Cafferty. I am the vice chair. Nancy Cavanis is the secretary. Dory Fuller continues as treasurer, and Irvin Bateman continues as assistant treasurer. So this group has just begun. Also, we had the new director of the Park Service come, Dave Halleck, the superintendent from the Outer Banks group. It was really refreshing to have him there. He plans to be at all of our meetings. It was a very positive exchange, and they are looking at the ORV legislation, the Park Service. They have been instructed to review the science and make wildlife buffers of the smallest size and duration, looking at modifying night driving seasonal closures and vehicle-free areas. They're also proposing an increase in fees at campgrounds from $20 to $28 at Oregon Inlet, $23 to $28 at Ocracoke. They're looking at providing electricity and improvements to bathroom facilities at those locations. And they are considering an increase in fees to the Wright brothers from a per-person charge to a per-vehicle charge. And the annual pass to the Park Service, I believe, is going to be, to Wright brothers may go to $30. And in 2016, it is the National Park Service Centennial, and their goal is to enhance awareness to connect the next generation of stewards. Additionally, they will fully fund lifeguards at all of the National Park beaches 7 days a week this year. So that was very encouraging. Anyway, I think the whole meeting was encouraging. It's really nice to know that there is improvements in the working relationship with the Park Service, particularly with the members on Hatteras Island. So, and a few upcoming dates of note. Let's see, in March is the Governor's Conference on Tourism in Pinehurst. Beginning the 14th of March is the Daffodilly Fest, Big Bugs and Blooms. March 15th is the St. Patrick's Day Parade. March 19th through 22nd is Taste of the Beach. And the 22nd of March begins the Haunted History at the Lost Colony. So lots of things to do in March. And we're looking at another tourism summit this year, a one-day event, and also a ribbon cutting for the event site sometime in May, and that date is not yet confirmed. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations on being elected vice chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hunt, you have something for us tonight?
Just one. I don't know if anybody saw the email that the NO Awards went out for environmental stewards and information. It was established by the really great Congressman Walter B. Jones Sr., and he made sure it funded. And our neighbor to the north, Currituck County, got one, and Spencer Rogers got one, as well as several PhD and graduate students at NC State and UNC. But to Spencer and Currituck County, great job.
Great job, sure is. Thank you very much. Commissioner Ratzenberger?
Yeah, if I might, Andy and Garmin and I just got back from the Albemarle Rural Planning Organization, so a couple of things of interest. You know, Currituck couldn't have any money to build their bridge, so they agreed to toll it. Well, since they agreed to toll the bridge, the state has given them a bonus of $100 million as a reward to do anything else in Currituck they want to. Most of us sat through the whole meeting trying to figure out how that works, but Currituck is $100 million richer as long as they toll the bridge. The question of why they didn't just give the $100 million back and delete the tolls was unanswerable, but that's how it works. And now, the poor guy in Camden County who has about 5 miles of that road, who gave all of his points to the Currituck Bridge, he doesn't get any of that money because it's not in Currituck. I just thought I'd throw that one out there when you have nothing else to ponder. More interesting here for us is that the ARPO has sent a letter resolution forward to get appropriate regulatory changes to allow DOT to use snow and ice money for sand removal. It turns out the sand removal comes out of maintenance. And it's like insurance, there's a $250,000 deductible before they'll pay back on it. Snow and ice money is free and clear. And it's hardly ever used. There's a lot extra going. So the idea is that if we can use the snow and ice money, road clearing money, to do sand, we'll save some money down here on 12. In terms of the towns up here in this area, we're so small, and usually that's always because of a named event as opposed, a disaster thing. So it really doesn't help us here, but it does help our neighbors down to the south. The DOT, and this is really kind of neat, and I mentioned it before, they are looking at putting in a passenger-only ferry on the Ocracoke-Hatteras route. And you may have seen stuff about this. Ocracoke has taken a 30% hit over the last year because of the lengthening route, the reduction in the number of runs, the number of people that come in, the fact that it's now a hassle because people that want to go day trip can't count on anything. So this will be a reservation ferry. This is what they're studying right now, 3 runs a day. Pretty much would make up the shortfall. They're going to be studying it over the next year, maybe starting early, but, studying it. And with an idea of, if this works, then it also could be something that could be expanded out throughout the Sounds. We could almost be going back 100, 150 years in time when we've got ferries docking on the Sound side of Nags Head, bringing people in. If it goes this far at some time, I wouldn't put right now, but it's really kind of neat, and Dotton's doing this, and we're fully supportive of it. You want to piggyback?
No, may I ask you a question?
Shoot.
As part of the study for passenger-only ferries, are they studying public transportation to get them from the ferry to the village?
Yes.
Great.
As a matter, and there's another thing I want to mention, that was part of, DOT is working fully with Ocracoke right now, because that's the focus of it, on trolley something or other. And Ocracoke is, and High County / Ocracoke is fully cooperating. They're ecstatic. Unlike the motor vehicle ferry, which is part of the state road and is untolled, the passenger ferry will be tolled. So that the residents that have to drive back and forth to work, etc., as far as workers are still untolled. But for the passenger ferry, which is meant to be like a day trip or that kind of thing, it will be tolled. There was a tremendous amount of problems, congestion on Hatteras at the parking areas, the length of it, the unreliability of it. The passenger ferry will be reservation, so that a person that can guarantee they're on a 10 o'clock lift. They can schedule their day accordingly, spend X hours, come back on the guaranteed reservation one, not end up stuck in a line waiting. So the negative impact factor should go away. I mean, it's really exciting when you look at it. So,
I hear that there's supposed to be a trial run of that ferry here in the very near future.
They're bringing one down from New England, somewhere in New England.
Right.
they're bringing one down to run it around and see, you know, how it actually works. It maxes out at 5-foot draw. And about 150 people per shot do the run, you know, point to point between Silver Lake and Hatteras Village in an hour or so, maybe an hour and a quarter once you consider loading it up. Will take bicycles, has racks, you know, the whole 9 yards. Just no vehicles. Do you have another question?
No, it's just interesting that you mentioned Silver Lake. That wouldn't, we wouldn't really need a trolley.
That's what the trial I heard about was
That's great.
supposed to be in Silver Lake.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, you can walk, but also there's places, you know, for the average walker around Silver Lake to the first intersection might be fine, but there's more to Ocracoke Village out there, and I don't know how far they're going to run it, but it could be to the beaches and stuff like that. So, I mean, they have a plan on it. The Alligator River Bridge resolution, I think we did last time. Dot has brought up a possible problem with the resolution in that the planning is so far along that if they were to split the bridge from the project, they'd probably have to start all over because of all the environmental permitting. So Dot has asked us to, they're gonna meet the intent, if not the letter, of the resolutions, and we'll know more in March. They think what they can do is take the work they have done and reorganize it a bit in terms of sequencing to be sure that the bridge is the priority without breaking it into pieces and probably causing all the environmental stuff to have to start all the way over again. So Dot is going to work on, they've got the intent, they're fully they understand it. They just need to work the technicalities. So we may not see exactly what was in that resolution from Tyrell and us, but, and that, I believe, was it.
Okay, thank you very much. We need, next item is we need to set our workshop dates for the capital improvement budget and for the our budget workshop.
I need to run get my phone at the calendar.
Mr. Arvin, when would you prefer the end dates on these be?
Well, we'd like to have sometime in early March, if possible, or middle of March at least, a CIP workshop dedicated just to CIP projects. The manager's recommended budget will be presented to you May the 6th. In previous years, there's been some workshops prior to that. Last year there were not. If I recall, you waited to have a workshop until after the manager's budget was recommended, which seemed to work well, I thought. But I'd ask that you pick a time in March to do a CIP and then be looking at soon after May 6th for budget workshops.
We've got Town Hall Day in Raleigh on the 18th. Okay.
Right.
How about the second week in March? What did your calendars look like there?
I prefer not to. I've intended, yes, I intended to be gone through, traveling through the 16th.
What does the 20th of March look like to everybody?
Friday?
Friday.
Is it Good Friday?
Is that a problem with staff?
It's a town holiday that Friday.
No, Good Friday is, yeah, but that's not the 20th.
Oh, no.
Good Friday's in April.
Yeah, good. Sorry, no problem.
Roberta.
When is Good Friday? Did you say Good
The
Friday?
3rd of April.
3rd of April.
Roberta. Really?
How about, how about the 20th at 9 o'clock in the morning? Give us all day to work on it. That good?
That's good.
That's a CIP workshop.
CIP workshop, right?
You said 9 a.m.?
Right.
Okay.
Are you adding it to the whole calendar?
No, I do. I'm just adding it to my calendar right now. I'm not quick enough to get it on the whole calendar. I asked Carolyn to put it on the whole calendar for us. And our budget workshop dates, is there any objection to doing it the way we did it last year, letting our town manager and staff come to let the town manager develop the town manager's budget and come to us with the proposed budget, the way we worked through it last year?
I thought the process was fine. The more we can advance it, the better. Just
Yeah.
keep from running out of time at the end, but no problem with the process.
Anybody have a problem with that?
That's
When would
what
be a
should
good date in May for you, Cliff, to consider the budget workshop?
Well, if presented to you on the 6th, I'd assume you'd want a week to
Right.
review, and then maybe the week of the, sometime of the week of the 18th for the first workshop.
Let's make it on May 20th. We should probably all have that date reserved anyway.
We're doing that, I'm sorry, I got lost in my calendar here.
So do it on the 20th as a part of our mid-month?
As a part of our mid-month, if we need a mid-month, or do it before mid-month, or...
Okay. So our first budget is 20.
That morning, I think you've switched to a 7 o'clock mid-month at that point. That's kind of late to be thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the idea on when we should start?
Early.
That's fairly long.
Mm-hmm. Train to standard, not the time.
What about your work schedule?
Start right after lunch.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, tell me when.
Let's do start that at 1:30.
We're going to schedule a second one tentatively.
Do you want to go ahead and schedule one for like the
Absolutely.
next Wednesday?
The next Wednesday, 27th.
That's fine if we don't start until maybe 2 o'clock,
That's fine.
so 1:30, 2 o'clock, somewhere there.
Is 1:30 okay? Then we don't have to remember a lot of times.
He was saying,
That's fine.
That's fine?
I'll make 1:30, we'll be fine.
All right.
I'll make it that way.
Okay. We'll
There,
See
if
where
we
we go
could.
from there.
On this budget thing. If you remember, last year, I presented a spreadsheet version of the budget, which eliminated these big books. And I was wondering if we wanted to think about going to that, or I can send the samples out again of what we did as a way to look at the budget at a higher levels than going through those books page, maybe save some pages.
Why don't you send a copy of that out and send it to Mr. Arvin and
All right, I will do that. Thank you.
let to take a look at it from staff standpoint and from our standpoint both, because we need to have something that works for both.
All right.
Any other business we need to consider?
I had one item, one alibi. I sent y'all a note that I got from a citizen about dog waste. And that's something we talked about when they're in the water quality report. Just a mention from somebody about more and more people and perhaps education programs and something we ought to think about, education. And there's a lot there, but.
Mr. Arvin, you have any comments on dog waste?
Well, periodically, we're looking at things that we can kind of blast in the other FYIs and need to know information as reminders that we can do that.
And I don't know the rest of the town. I know on the beach and in my neighborhood, our policies are pretty closely followed. We see folks walking around all the time with their little bags. But I think it's probably an education process that we need to redo occasionally.
Well, there's, and I gotta congratulate my neighbor here, who comes over to the village to walk the dog on a regular basis and carrying her little sack with her and doing the right thing. And we have the little stations there and everything, but it's not universal. And I don't know if people, they can't just be totally.
Right.
So I don't know what we can do, but there's.
We have them at our beach accesses. Are they, but forgive me for not knowing, Ralph. Are they on the beach side or the road side?
On the roadside.
They're on the roadside, but we do have a few on the beach side too.
Yeah.
And
seen
some
them on both
some of the bathhouses, but we mainly keep them on the roadside because they get pretty rusted out over there on the other side.
Well, I was going to say, you might want to take a look at the ones in the village because they're plastic trash cans. They're mounted on posts, and the delivery system for the bags is really great.
Okay.
They're a pretty neat system in the village. I will give that, the way they've got it done. And they're very visible. They're green. They're eye-catching.
I was just going to say, Commissioner Ratzenberger, if you don't mind passing along the information of the complaint, I'll be happy to talk to them. And if it's a certain area of the town that it's occurring that they have a concern with, we'll try to address that.
No, I don't. It's South Nags Head. Just, that's all, that's all the granularity I have for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One question to that effect. Are the supplies available year-round?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, the hazard you will find is that we found in the villages, that once we put all the bags out, a lot of people like to think that that's a bag supply store, so they take them off with you. Subscribe to the Virginian Pilot. The guy here, the delivery guy here, bags every newspaper he delivers.
Yes, he does.
And it makes for great. A lot of our own local newspapers could learn from that, hint, hint, hint.
For right now, let's take a look at, make sure we have all areas covered and what an education program might be, especially with springtime coming.
Yes, sir.
At this time, let's adjourn into closed session, and Mr. Lighty, I'll ask you to.
Yes, sir. Y'all need a
motion.
Yes, sir. You need a motion to enter closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3 in order to confer with the board attorney regarding the San Soda litigation and to confer with the board attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That being none, it's so ordered. We'll adjourn into closed. Board's back in open session. Mr. Lighty, your report out from the closed session.
Yes, sir, the board did confer with the town attorney regarding the Sansota litigation and gave the town attorney some authority. The board also discussed a matter within the attorney-client privilege, but no action was taken on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other business we need to talk about tonight? If not, we will recess until our Board of Commissioners retreat at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Do I have a motion for that?
We're in recess.
Okay. We're recessed until tomorrow morning at 8:30.
I don't get the discussion.